An entertainment magazine in Toronto is in trouble with the police for soliciting. Police say prostitutes have been using the personal ads in Now magazine to attract clients. The magazine's board of directors has been charged with 14 counts of soliciting. The editors say it's an attack on freedom of the press. Our legal affairs specialist, Vicki Russell, reports.
Prostitution is legal in Canada, but soliciting in a public place is not. So what many prostitutes have done to get off the streets is set up so-called escort services and advertise in the personal ads in newspapers and even in the yellow pages. In Toronto, some use the magazine called Now, which has a circulation of nearly 100,000. This woman advertises her sexual services in the magazine because she says it's safer than working the streets.
I get to deal with a lot of businessmen who make a lot of good friends, and it's a lot safer. You can, when you're on the street, you're dealing with people that you're just meeting for a second, you're talking to them, and you're not too sure.
2 weeks ago, the magazine was charged with soliciting. When it continued with the ads, police moved in.
What's happening is you're all being charged, the directors and the corporation, jointly as co-accused. Here's a copy of the summons for you.
Well, it's a sad day for freedom of the press in Canada.
The people at Now say the magazine allows prostitutes to stay off the street. The editor doesn't understand why that doesn't make police happy.
And it seems that the only two possible reasons for attacking Now on this, one would be that the police would rather have prostitutes on the street. It certainly undermines the law they're supposed to enforce. And the other is they have a bone to pick with Now.
The police deny that and say they were acting on a complaint. Now's lawyer wonders why no other papers have been charged.
The only reason that the soliciting law was held constitutional by the Supreme Court of Canada was because of the dangers of street prostitution, the disruption of neighborhoods, the dangers of prostitution, the use of pimps. But of course, advertising of this sort negates all those problems.
Leather latex, Naughty Joyce, Nurse Feelgood. Some of the personal ads in Now magazine, ads that the morality squad say are communicating for the purpose of engaging in prostitution. Last week, the magazine and 4 of its directors were charged.
When the charges were laid, Superintendent Jim Clark of the Morality Squad was quoted in the newspapers as saying that the police consulted with senior Crown Attorney Jerome Wiley, who told them that there was sufficient evidence to lay charges. Well, Jerome Wiley, speaking through a spokesman at the Attorney General's office, says that's not what happened at all.
Metro Police declared their intention to us that they were going to lay charges against Now magazine. Mr. Wiley provided what amounts to a very informal initial legal opinion, but he reserved the right with the police to return a full researched legal opinion. That was not provided. Metro Police laid the charges before a full legal opinion could be provided.
I gotta tell you, it gets more and more disturbing, I mean, I'm not as happy as anyone to sort of have to conclude that the police really is carrying out vendettas or whatever, paybacks on the press, but as this story unfolds, more and more it seems like the police wanted to bring charges of some type against this magazine, and they were determined to do it regardless, one way or the other.
700 people have signed a petition so far asking that the charges be dropped, and the Crown has that option to do that if it does not want to proceed.
If that were the case, then the Attorney General's office could feel more comfortable with using the word justice and referring to what they do, I would have to say.
Superintendent Jim Clark refused to speak to me today. Staff Inspector Keith Cowling of the same office, all he would say today is that they acted on a complaint, they consulted with the Crown, and they'll go to court and see what happens.
Highly unusual for police to act alone without a formal legal opinion.
Yeah, apparently they went and they talked to Mr. Wiley. They don't need, let's be clear about this. Police do not need the approval of the Attorney General's office. But in a case like this,
formality attached to this situation.
This is such a gray area. These charges against the magazine, I was talking to one Crown attorney today who told me that the police came to him 3 months ago, and he said, well, why don't you do something else? So they spoke to different Crown attorneys about it. My guess is September 28th, those charges will be stayed by the Crown if they do not feel they can proceed.
All right, Lauren, we'll be tracking the story, see what happens. Thank you. Still,
the 4 directors of Toronto-based Now magazine appear in court in 2 weeks. They face 14 charges of communicating for the purpose of prostitution. The charges stem from Now magazine's classified ads, which contain explicit personal ads for a variety of sexually related services. The Ontario Attorney General's office says police jumped the gun in charging Now magazine. The Crown Attorney has yet to complete its legal research on the case and could not offer police an opinion on the legal validity of the charges. Well, joining us now from Toronto is Alice Klein, director and co-publisher of Now magazine. Good morning.
Hi there.
Alice, just for the benefit of our viewers who aren't familiar with Now magazine, could you give us a sense of what these ads that appear in the personals are all about?
The ads are escort ads, often called, and they're somewhat more explicit language. They're more direct language, perhaps, than the ads that appear in other publications. But they're just basically the same genre as what's in your telephone book under escort ads, what's in the Star, the Globe, the Sun.
Well,
these ads are everywhere.
What's coming into question here? The details of these ads?
Well, there's some mention made of the language of the ads. As far as Now magazine's advertising policy is concerned, we try not to censor any of our advertisers, to the extent that it's possible. We try to allow people to communicate in the language that they feel is appropriate to their customers. And therefore they are somewhat more explicit. Now that, however, has absolutely nothing to do with the charge, which is communicating for the purpose of prostitution. Communicating is usually a good thing for a newspaper, so I mean, I guess I can't be completely upset. But no, the explicit language in the ads, in fact, is a complete non-issue in this case.
Well, do you think the ads violate the law that prohibits communication for the purpose of prostitution?
Absolutely not. And I think in this we have a fairly solid group standing with us, including the editorial writers of the Star, Globe, and Sun. No, this law has never been used in this way. This law that we're charged under is the old Wink law that came into being in 1985, which was...
What's that?
It was intended to deal with the whole issue of street solicitation, which was considered by many communities across Canada to be a problem that they were facing. And the law is intended to prevent people from engaging in street activity, which could be a nuisance to the community. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that this form of advertising is exactly an alternative to this street situation, which is, in fact, does pose a problem both to the women and men who are engaged in the in the sexual activities, and to the communities. So, interestingly enough, it's an ironic thing.
All right. There was one other point here. Your lawyer, Clayton Ruby, says the paper's position is that the police are carrying out a vendetta against Now. And why is that? Secondly, why would the police have a grudge against the publication?
Well, I mean, I think in a way, Now magazine, which is a news and entertainment weekly that has often offered a critical perspective on policing issues, I think in a way what we've brought to light is the fact that policing in any society is political. And of course, these charges, in a sense, are political. In a way, they show how close sexual intolerance is to political repression. Here we have police, in fact, moving independently, even misinforming their superiors to move against a newspaper. It is a very political issue, and we have all along been saying, because in Toronto, policing has been a very hot issue. We've had young people gunned down on the streets, young black people gunned down on the streets. This is a major problem that we've spoken of quite strongly.
Are you planning on continuing to run the ads in the same fashion, or are you planning any changes right now?
We're not planning any changes. We're planning to continue as we are. We're resisting this. We don't think that the police should be deciding what is appropriate for publishing. We think publishers should be deciding that, and I think the people of Canada agree with that.
Is this a Toronto the good puritanical image thing coming back again, do you think?
Well, I think it's beginning to look like the morality squad has been incredibly hasty in trying to find some way to move against us. Funnily enough, it seems to have really affirmed our legal position with respect to the explicit quality nature of the ads, because as much as perhaps that was the issue that bothered them, they have been unable to find it. They obviously were unable to find any charge related to that at all. So, yeah, perhaps it is Toronto the Good. Perhaps it is.
Alice, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Alice Klein is with Now Magazine, and she joined us from Toronto.